This movie here has done a lot of good and a lot of bad for the karate community. You can even argue that it's done more bad than good in the long run. Let me elaborate. During the 60s and 70s, we had a lot of big martial art movies, but it seemed like they would all get stuck around the same martial art niche, with very few reaching mainstream success. And many are regarded as cult classics now, but because of the subject matter, which could be pretty violent at times, these movies were doomed to stay in a certain bubble. The Karate Kid, however, was the opposite. This movie's pop culture impact was huge. I'm talking 100 million at the box office huge. I think it's because the film's approach was very different in the way that the lead character was a teenager instead of an adult, and it followed a lot of 80s family-friendly movie tropes, so it was digestible by a lot of different kinds of people, not just the martial arts community. Because the movie was so popular, the word karate has become almost synonymous with the words martial arts. I mean, its effect is still felt today, and many everyday people still refer to any martial art that has a gi as karate. It's pretty cringe, to be honest. And don't get me wrong, the movie is pretty good. I mean, it was directed by the same guy who directed the first Rocky film, but as good as that movie was, unfortunately, it's also responsible for the downfall of karate's quality control, because a bunch of underqualified people noticed how they could make a quick buck by exploiting karate's name. So, the fake masters started to pop up, and even some legitimate ones were led astray and watered their system down to make it more accessible and pleasing to the general public. And a plethora of new excited clients came to sign up as they thought it would be some kind of cheat code that they could use in everyday life. But here's the truth. Martial arts is hard, very hard, and it requires hours of drilling, sparring, and conditioning to get any good at it. There's no secret to it, and if there was, that secret would be hard work and dedication. You're not going to get good unless you constantly put in the work and pressure test your techniques with aliveness against a non-compliant partner. Eventually, many legitimate karatekas saw the rise of MMA and constantly saw their beloved art face high criticism thanks to these fraudulent so-called karate dojos that had tarnished karate's name through the years. So, they started to do something about it. Along with their point fighting, they also started to do more and more full contact sparring, just like they did in the old days. They started working on their physical fitness again and started teaching the practical application of the kata they were practicing. And even more importantly, they started to rediscover the grappling side of the art. Now listen, there's a reason why combat sports such as wrestling, boxing, judo, Muay Thai, and MMA are at the top of the martial arts food chain. It's because they train for live resisting competition with a greater intensity. So, that's exactly what karate set out to do. And thus, Karate Combat was born, a modern full-contact league with a unique rule set that allows different styles of karate to come together and use their distinctive arsenal, but they had to be cerebral about the whole thing, or else it would just be a watered-down version of something else. There's a reason why boxers are the best at throwing hands, and why Muay Thai fighters are the best with knees and elbows, and why judokas are the best at throwing people. It's because they specialize in it. Their rule set encourages it, so they train to be the best at it. Karate Combat doesn't have ground fighting, submissions, or knees and elbows because then it would just be MMA. It's not just stand-up fighting either because then it would just be kickboxing or Muay Thai. Karate Combat has a specialized rule set that allows striking, grappling as long as you throw your opponent as soon as you get a hold of them, and 5 seconds worth of ground and pound from a standing position once your opponent hits the ground. Now, you may say, why limit the action? And well, it's because we've been doing it forever in combat sports. There's no kicks in boxing, there's no striking in judo, there's no groundwork in Muay Thai, and there's no submissions in freestyle and Greco-Roman wrestling. And there's already a sport that allows all those things together anyways, it's called MMA. However, what a rule set does is give a sport focus, something to specialize in. If Karate Combat really takes off, it'll provide modern karatekas with a way to make a living, so more students will take it seriously as they do with MMA and boxing. What I found was the most interesting thing was that point fighters who usually get the criticism that they wouldn't be able to do well in a full contact manner, they were the first ones to show up to fight. These weren't just any point fighters either. We're talking about WKF point fighters, and for those of you who don't know, WKF is probably the biggest karate league there is in the world. And they didn't just throw in their journeymen to experiment. Right away, they threw in a legend like Rafael Agaev to prove a point. And so, he did exactly that. He gave an explosive performance where he ended up taking the victory. Other WKF fighters that participated were Davy Donna, Abdullah Ibrahim, Rob Callum, and Jesus Pakargaha. Talking about point fighting, they're even starting to go back to a more traditional approach to karate, where knockouts are allowed. There's a new full contact point fighting league called WUKF Professional Karate, and knockouts are encouraged. And while their athletes are not at the level of WKF karatekas, it's still good to see karate head towards this direction. WUKF Pro Karate matches are 3-3-minute rounds with the emphasis on clean, powerful techniques. They have smaller gloves. If you get knocked down, there's a 10 count. And it's shot in a modern sport format, making it fun and exciting to watch. They have rankings and championship belts. This is a good choice because it makes it more appealing to a mainstream audience, and karate can use all the good notability it can get right now. But hey, we're getting there. Thank you so much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos on combat sports and martial arts. Don't forget to hit that bell icon either. And if you want to follow us on social media, you definitely can at Iron Kumite on Instagram and Twitter. And if you have any ideas for the channel, let me know in the comment section below. And until next time, stay sharp, everyone.